What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another What If video, and in today's What If video, we will be doing what if Michael Myers wasn't Freddy versus Jason? What if he ended up going against Freddy and Jason? What would have happened? What would have changed? Find out in today's What If. But before we go ahead and actually get into this, I want to give a shout out to my fan SR Striker who suggested me this idea. And also, this video was meant to come out yesterday. However, there was a sudden change in plans as I'm currently working on the next Spider-Verse Saga project, being the Cyborg Spider-Man, which is going to be releasing soon. I was also working on What If Every Cartoon Spider-Man crossover part 4. So those two are currently in production at the moment, and that's why I ended up delaying this. But it's out now and it's ready to go. But make sure you guys go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below what you guys think would happen if Michael wasn't Freddy versus Jason. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the what if. Now, before we go ahead and get into this, this actually was possible, and this was a backstory to this. The thing is that originally Michael could have been in there because in the early 90s, Michael entered the public domain, meaning that anyone could use him at that point or buy him. So because his multiple companies were attempting to buy him, New Line Cinema actually almost ended up buying them as well, which is also the company that owned Freddy and Jason at the time, all the way up till after Freddy vs. Jason. However, unfortunately, they weren't able to get the rights, and thus Michael ended up going to a different company, which led to some great movies. But if New Line Cinema ended up getting him, we could have gotten Michael. So in order for this what if to work, New Line Cinema was going to have to get Michael a lot earlier. So they do end up getting Michael in this version. Now how about this change to the movies leading up to Freddy vs. Jason? Well, Halloween 6 and H2O, I'm just going to say, is mostly the same here, except one exception, though. Laurie actually ends up cutting Michael's head off. Laurie does end up cutting Michael's head off. However, similar to Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy's claw also ends up coming out on Michael's mask, laughing, thus setting up the crossover pretty soon. And Laurie and John will also end up being in Freddy vs. Jason as well, covering the Michael Myers side of things. So then when we open up on Freddy vs. Jason, we still get the backstory of Freddy explaining how he got his powers and everything that's been going on since. And how he needs everyone to remember him. Thus, not only is he going to bring Jason back, but he's also going to bring Michael back. So because he ends up bringing them both into their own dream sequences. Jason's dream sequence pretty much plays out the same, and Michael's dream sequence, it'd be something like this, where he would end up seeing himself seeing the young Myers house, and thus he would actually end up going up to it and would end up realizing that it's Judith there. Thus he would actually end up going for the killing blow. However, Judith would end up talking to Michael, telling him to get ready to kill and that everyone needs to remember who he is. Michael would be extremely confused, tilting his head, and so he reveals to be Freddy. Freddy would end up laughing, telling Michael that it's good to see him. Michael will be extremely confused as he's heard about Freddy Krueger before, but it's never believed the tales. Freddy would end up explaining to him why he ended up reviving him alongside another person that Michael's apparently heard of, Jason Voorhees, which Michael's shocked by this, and you end up saying that not only can you take out as many people as I can so I can get my power back, but with this advantage you could also end up killing your family. And Michael would end up realizing the advantages to this. Thus he would end up agreeing. However, he's not only going to kill a bunch of people first and then go after Laurie and John. He's going after them straight first, which Freddy had no idea about. Granted, he probably should have done more research. But anyway, Jason's first kill in this movie is still going to play out the same, and for Michael, he would end up heading to the mental institution Laurie stayed at and Resurrection. Laurie is still staying at that mental institution. However, John would end up visiting her there, as John's actually a teacher at the high school for the kids that do end up going there, and I forgot the name of majority of these kids in Freddy vs. Jason because they're not memorable. But anyway, so John ends up seeing his mother. He tries to tell his mother that everything will be alright and that Michael's dead. However, Laurie says that you never know, Michael still could come back, thus showing that she still has gone mentally insane. Thus, John, saddened by this, would end up leaving and would head back to Elm Street. And also, something that's very different here, Elm Street is on Haddonfield. So John has moved to Haddonfield, and Elm Street is on Haddonfield. And Camp Crystal Lake is also in Haddonfield as well. So we're kind of retconning some stuff in order for this to work. So because John ends up leaving and heading back to school around the same time, one of the guys ends up telling the girls that Freddy's back, even that weird Freddy dialogue, where they pretty much explain how Freddy's back and how they've been held in a mental institution for a while. Meanwhile, Michael would have attempted to track Laurie down at the mental institution. However, Laurie would have actually ended up escaping the mental institution, as she knows Michael's there, and she's also it's actually the same mental institution the two kids were at, so she also ended up escaping as well. And thus she knows that Michael still could be out there and that she doesn't fully trust him, as she has been seeing Michael a lot recently. However, alongside this, though, she would also have heard about Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, that she also knows that she might have to potentially keep a watch out for them. And while Lori's running around trying to find John, saying that she needs to save John, she would end up finding Michael. Michael would immediately attempt to attack her. However, Lori would end up fighting back with a piece of rubble, and would end up throwing it at Michael. However, although it does hit Michael, he quickly gets back up. But Lori does end up running, and it's actually at a cornfield. The same cornfield that Jason and Freddy are currently at. Jason's in the middle of trying to get a kill and does actually end up stealing one of Freddy's kills, which Freddy is not happy about, with him saying that she's mine, my kill. And what makes things worse, however, is that at this time, Freddy actually decides to go for another kill. However, Michael actually interrupts that one. And now Freddy's getting pissed off and saying that maybe it was a mistake to revive these two. And that's because Freddy decides that he needs to go ahead and get out of the dream sequence and he needs to take care of these two idiots. That's because this is where the first big battle is taking place, though, in the cornfield. So because Jason still does come out and does get on fire alongside this, Lori does end up seeing this and freaks out as she realizes that it is Jason Voorhees. However, she ends up running into Michael again, and Michael's about to stab her until he actually ends up seeing Jason Voorhees and tilts his head, as he never thought he'd meet him. Jason, being the dumb one, is immediately hostile and attempts to stab Michael. However, Michael dodges the attack, and the two begin to fight, with Jason using his machete and Michael using his knife. Meanwhile, Freddy has come out of the dream sequence and ends up stabbing Michael in the back of the head and ends up slashing Jason's mask. However, that barely does anything to both of them, and Jason ends up going for his head. However, Freddy dodges the attack and does end up stabbing Jason in the leg. Jason quickly falls on the ground, however, quickly recovers and does end up smashing Freddy's head, throwing him into a tree, thus giving him enough time, and thus Michael and Jason will begin to fight a little bit as well. Michael would attempt to get the advantage, however, Jason, strength-wise, would have the superior advantage alongside speed. So because Jason wouldn't going to get the advantage of Michael, however, Michael would decide that he needs to think about this, he needs to be smart. And that's because he would begin to watch Jason carefully as he dodges all of his attacks to make sure that he can potentially get the right move. That's because Michael does end up dodging majority of the attacks, with Jason getting more and more pissed off at every moment. That's because Michael would slowly start to begin the advantage, outsmarting him. However, this is when Freddy decides to come back into the fight and actually does end up taking off Michael's mask. Michael, pissed at this, would attempt to go to stab Freddy. However, Freddy would end up dodging the attack, saying, "You want your mask? Come and get it." Because Michael's not focusing on his mask, with Jason now stabbing him in the back of the head as well. And Jason and Freddy would continue to fight alongside this. Michael, however, would end up grabbing an axe nearby and would attempt to go for Freddy and actually end up slashing his leg. Freddy would end up getting more pissed off by this, saying, "You're going to regret that." And thus, because of this, Freddy does end up slashing Michael's face. Michael does manage to quickly recover, however, and does begin to get the advantage. And thus, Michael actually outsmarts Freddy as well, and thus Michael does get the early advantage and does almost kill him here, forcing the two to retreat. Michael obviously having the advantage, and he thinks about following them. However, he knows he's got to go after Lori, only to see that Lori is long gone, and thus Michael's not pissed at this. As Lori would end up running into the teenagers with John alongside John as well. John would immediately ask his mother why she out of the mental institution, with her telling John that she needs to stop Michael and that he's back. John would be extremely confusing. No, he's not. However, the two teenagers would end up saying that Michael is back. Alongside this, they would also end up telling him that Jason Voorhees, alongside Freddy Krueger, is there as well. John is shocked by this, saying, "How is that possible?" And that Jason Voorhees also died a long time ago, from what he heard as well. Let them say they have no idea, but that they're back and that they need to stop him. And that's because all they know they're going to have to do something quick. Thus, they would end up contemplating on what they should potentially do, with Lori even saying that while she has been able to kill Michael before, Freddy brought it back to life. So even if they kill Freddy and Jason again, Michael and Jason again, and Freddy escapes, you can just bring them back to life once again, and then they would have this whole problem again and go by a different strategy. So they need to think about this smart. This all the women siding with one of the teenagers explaining that while I was at the mental institution, he's done some research as well, how they secretly went back there, and that everything on Freddy Krueger has been erased or blocked out. Does he need to try to figure out where they could potentially stop Freddy, and as well as Jason and Michael? Thus, they would end up heading to a special facility, and they would begin to do some research and trying to figure this out as well. They need to figure out how they could potentially stop them. However, Jason and Michael are currently on their way as well, as they're in the middle of going around killing people. Jason just violently killing, while Michael is trying to find Lori, and every time he runs into someone, he thinks they're getting in his path. Alongside this, though, he knows that Freddy and Jason could also be huge thorns in his path as well, thus he's trying to get them out of the way. Thus, Michael and Jason do end up coming face to face with each other, and they do have a short battle here as well. Jason getting the advantage in strength, and would actually end up beating Michael, knocking him out for a little bit. And thus Jason now seemingly has no and no one to stop him. Meanwhile, one of the kids has a dream sequence in which Freddy uses to his advantage to actually possess the kid, and thus now Freddy can use this to his advantage to get Jason alongside Michael there. Meanwhile, Laurie, John, and all the teenagers are currently in the middle of trying to figure out what they could potentially do. And do some more research, and they would end up seeing all the kids that have been frightened by Freddy and how they're all locked up there, with them saying that this is sick, with Laurie also saying this as well. However, they would also manage to get access to some files, and they would end up seeing something though. And these are files of there's also some files of Dr. Loomis here, and some research, and that since this is the H2O version of Michael, clearly this is Dr. Loomis is obviously legendary as he tried to stop Michael, and it's not seen as a crazy old man. And I always had multiple files, and he's actually learned of Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger, and has a good amount of files on them as well, saying that if they were to come, then he'd be prepared to stop them as well. However, they never really did. Because after 1978, while he's heard about them, though, it was already too late, and that it was already after Jason Goes to Hell and the Final Friday movie at the time. Because Loomis has been waiting as well for this, and thus now with some information, they would also end up seeing something that they could potentially use to stop Freddy, Jason, and Michael. However, one of the kids that's been possessed would actually end up pulling that in and kill another teenager that saw that, and he would end up stabbing Jason alongside Michael, who's gone back up as well. He would end up stabbing him, bringing them into the dream world. Freddy would end up laughing, saying that this is his home turf and that there's no way they could possibly win this, saying that you can't beat me here. Michael and Jason, however, would decide against that, and thus they would begin to fight in a three-way brawl. Michael would decide that he needs to play smart here again as well, which Freddy saw this coming, and thus he would quickly use his dream sequence power to distract Michael, as he knows he's got to get the dumb one, Jason, out of the way. It's because as Jason would get more pissed off at Freddy, and thus he would begin to fight him. And Jason would begin to get the advantage, however, cutting off his arms, only for them to regrow back and Freddy throw Jason around like he's a pinball on a pinball machine. Freddy would end up laughing, asking Jason, "Is that all you got?" However, Michael would come from the back and stab him. However, Freddy would all of a sudden teleport away and would appear behind Michael, saying hello, and slash the back of his head. Michael would get pissed off by this and would attempt to go for another slash. However, Freddy would dodge the attack. Michael realizes that this is not going to be an easy fight, especially now, and that's because he needs to look around and try to figure out something he can use. However, because everything with Freddy and Jason, the scene's going to mostly plot the same here. When Jason's turned into a little boy, this is when Freddy laughs, saying that there's a face only a mother could love, only for Freddy to get stabbed back in the head. Jason will quickly use this opportunity to retreat and try to quickly regrow, even though he survived on lakes before, which just makes no sense, because Michael and Freddy are now in the middle of a fight as well. Freddy went to commenting on Michael, saying that he's impressed with him, and that he's heard about the incidents in 1978 along with 1998, and that he's quite impressed, but he also sees Michael as weak and pathetic, and that we could expand so much more. However, Michael would attempt to go stabbing him in the face. However, Freddy would dodge the attack, only for his leg to get caught off for that to grow back. Freddy would end up laughing, saying, "Really, I thought you were smart and tactical about your strategies. It seems like you're not really standing much of a chance here, Michael." Michael would end up taking offense to this, thus he would end up grabbing something nearby and would throw at Freddy. However, Freddy would end up easily dodging the attack and actually ends up throwing it back at Michael, sending him flying. Freddy would end up using this opportunity and actually would end up forming a version of Judith Myers. Michael would be extremely confused, tilting his head, would attempt to stab Judith. However, Judith would end up attacking him, and he would actually end up throwing Michael to the ground, and Freddy would actually turn Michael into a little boy. Freddy would end up laughing, saying, "Not so strong now, are you, Michael?" However, Jason, who's gotten back up, though, ends up cutting Freddy's head off. However, it grows back. Freddy would end up laughing, asking Jason, "Is that seriously all you've got?" And Freddy would easily end up wiping the floor with Jason, and would manage to turn him back into a little boy, and thus he would end up putting both of them into separate dream sequences. This way, then they cannot interfere with him, and he can get some potential kills at this moment, and maybe he can even take these two out as well, and not having to deal with them anymore. However, Freddy doesn't know that at this point the teenagers, Laurie and John, are coming up with a plan to potentially figure out what they could do, and thus Laurie, along with one of the teenagers, decides that they're going to go into the dream sequence to try to stop Freddy. John and all the other teenagers are super against this. However, they decide that they do need to stop him. It's because they do end up agreeing, and thus Laurie and the other teenager do indeed go into the dream sequence. And they first enter Jason's dream sequence, where they see Jason and a boy at Camp Crystal Lake, and how he's currently about to be drowned, with them asking if Freddy is he can help them. How they quickly realize it's Freddy Krueger, and they would be terrified of this. Alongside this, what doesn't help is they also end up teleporting into Michael's dream sequence. And we see Michael at the Myers house when he was a little boy, and right when he's about to go for the kill, Judith would end up seeing him, and actually ends up stabbing him in the leg, and actually ends up throwing him down the stairs, and actually begins to beat the crap out of Michael, which the two of them are shocked as well, and they end up seeing Freddy now just up as Michael's dad, with him simply laughing, saying this is hilarious. the two of them are getting pissed off and that you're not going to win this. However, Freddy would end up laughing, saying, I already have, and would actually end up teleporting them into their own separate dream sequences. For the teenager, it's pretty much her seeing that Freddy actually ended up killing her mother. I don't really get that thing, so yeah, that's pretty much about the same. Meanwhile, for Lori, it would actually end up being back at school, and how she ended up coming out Michael's head. And alongside this, Freddy would attempt to manipulate her with other things, and this could be some nods to the Curse of Thorn timeline, but the Halloween 4, 5, and 6 are not canon in this version. Again, this is the H2O Michael. Well, this could be Freddy trying to manipulate her, saying that this stuff might actually happen, but Lori knows it doesn't. However, unbeknownst to the two, it happens in a different universe timeline. So that could be a little fun nod saying that this could have happened in a variation of the timeline, which it did, but it's not the one that we're currently in. And as Freddy and Lori has no idea that this actually happened in a different timeline from what we're seeing. Lori, and along with the teenagers, and Michael and Jason would manage to break out of the dream sequence. Freddy would now be extremely pissed off, saying that they're all going to pay for this. And thus, however, John would have coming from behind and would have coming and hit Freddy, thus quickly distracting him, and Jason and Michael would begin to have a short fight, with Jason stabbing one of the teenagers. Michael would also end up seeing John would attempt to go for a killing blow. However, John would end up dodging the attack, and he would throwing his uncle into fire. However, Michael would end up getting up, though. Now he's on fire as well, leaving John shocked by this. Thus he would be getting all the other teenagers out, and at this point, Freddy's waking up and is about to kill Lori, one of the teenagers calling them, with him saying, "You bitches." However, both Jason and Michael end up seeing Freddy, and thus they're ready to finally defeat him. Freddy would end up laughing, saying, "Oh boy, this is going to be fun." And this is where the battle does begin, and that is where we're going to end. What if Michael Myers was in Freddy vs. Jason? So part 1. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure you guys go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below what you thought of this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.